The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are.
I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is.
Don't think, feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is today Thursday or Friday, bud?
Today is Wednesday.
Okay, appreciate.
Welcome to Digital Communion, another LA-based episode. I'm joined by Nicholas Gregoriades. I'm Thomas. Thanks for tuning in. Today's question, next to the fig tree in this beautiful yard, undisclosed yard in Venice, is, well, it's not a question. I just want you to sort of riff off of this. When did you go too far?
What a great question. Fuck. That is a great question.
Or just talk to us about when you went too far.
I think perhaps a better question would be, can you remember one of the many times you went too far?
Talk about the top three.
Yeah, I think there's only ever really been the thing I went too far with in my life once was smoking weed. I think I went too far with that.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the thing. Everything else I could write down to naivete and just experimentation and just trying things out and feeling things out. But with that, I think I took it too far. And that was in my late 20s, age of 27, 28, I guess. Maybe even up to 29. Yeah.
What makes you think you went too far and not just, have a lower level of having a good time than everyone else?
I think what I always come back to with that is the thing about weed is that it's got such an interesting way of justifying its use. It makes you start rationalizing it to yourself, and I didn't even see that had crept up on me. And I remember when I stopped, and I just want to make it very clear, in no way do I recommend, I'm in no way saying cannabis is necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's just a neutral tool that can be used in different ways. But I remember the reason I realized it was not good for me and that I'd gone too far is when I stopped, I actually went through bad fucking withdrawal, man. Like really bad withdrawal, night sweats.
Really?
Yeah, dude. Like,
talk to me about how much you were smoking at the time, though.
I mean, it wasn't a huge amount, right? It was like, I'd say a couple of joints worth a day, maybe 3 joints worth a day.
What is that with smoking joints? You guys don't know that you can save the weed if you
well, actually
smoke it out of pipes and stuff?
I wasn't smoking joints, I was smoking a vaporizer.
Okay.
But I'm guesstimating that it was 3 joints.
So a few grams then?
Yeah, no, yeah.
A gram or two?
Yeah, a gram or 2, I would say.
That's a pretty healthy habit. Were you getting high all day long?
Well, I had this thing, which was I can only smoke on weekends. That was my thing, right? It was just like I gotta stay, I'm doing my work during the week, and that's how I'm gonna stay on top of this thing. I'm only gonna smoke on weekends. And then it was like, okay, Friday afternoon's the weekend too, right? So, and then it turned into, well, if I'm smoking on Friday afternoon and that's only a few hours away from Friday morning, then Friday morning's cool, right?
Sure.
So Friday's cool. And then I was like, okay, well, might as well do Monday as well. It's like a long weekend, right? And then
now we're cooking with gas.
There we go, right? And then it turned into I was smoking every day. My weekend was basically Thursday to Tuesday, and Wednesday was the day off type thing, right? So,
right.
And I was just one day I realized, hey, that escalated pretty quickly. And
but you weren't drinking alcohol, right?
No.
So your thing was just cannabis.
Yeah.
And then what would you do? You play video games?
No, dude, I never got that with weed. I never was that guy who would just sit on the chair and be like, oh, and zoned out. I was not.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would be like this. Like, all right, we're going to fucking crush God of War. I'm going to beat it. And once I'm not getting up until it's beat.
I mean, I definitely played a little bit of video games, I can remember, but not much at all. Mainly, it would just inspire me to stretch and like do stuff. I always wanted to do stuff. I wanted to like clean my room or like do jiu-jitsu or stretch or write stuff down or work on business plans. It seemed to have what was an overwhelming positive effect. But then I think, like anything that you take too far, it can kind of turn in on itself. And I think it got to that point where I just realized, especially after stopping and going through that withdrawal, I was like, I don't know if this is good for me anymore. I think I've taken this too far.
So sorry, what were the effects of the physiological effects?
Of the withdrawal?
Yeah.
Man, I would sweat. It was only a few nights that this took place until I think I was detoxed from it, but I would sweat and toss and turn in the night like restless sleep. And my bed sheets like smelled of weed, dude, like stank of like weed. So it was obviously my body like sweating out the cannabinoids. So I realized, well, like if my body's like trying to get this stuff out, like there's a reason for that, right? It doesn't want it in, and that's got to be a reason. And then psychologically, I remember I was just very mentally fragile for about eight or 9 days where I couldn't, it wasn't anxiety, it was a kind of it was almost like an itch I couldn't scratch, but in my mind, like I couldn't be still or at peace anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, I remember I was with my brother, he helped me get through it because he'd been through something similar, and I was like, man, let's go to the beach. I've got to go to the beach. It'll be cool at the beach. If I can just see the waves, it'll be cool. And then I'd get to the beach and I'd be like, we got to leave. I got to go. I don't like it here. We got to go. And then we went somewhere else, right? And then like, I couldn't settle myself anywhere. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, man.
And the strange thing I found is all the cool things I used to get from weed, like my friend said to me once, I never forgot, he said, one day you'll smoke too much. And once you trigger that paranoia response in your mind, once that switch has been flicked or that lever's been pulled, every time you smoke from then on afterwards, it'll get pulled again. And I was like, yeah, fucking whatever, dude, you don't know anything. And one day that happened. I smoked too much. I had a instantaneous onset of severe anxiety and paranoia. And ever since then, smoking weed wasn't really the same for me. It wasn't that fun, cool, chilled out, happy, energetic thing. It was more like, oh fuck, there's something wrong type thing, you know? And I notice it now as well. I mean, it wasn't just the other day that I had just a couple of hits of the joint for the first time in a year, literally in a year. And same thing, man. Got a little bit paranoid, and for the next couple of days, it was edgy as hell. So, man, I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to give that a skip for a while.
But doesn't that make you want to overcome that mechanism and go, all right, because this is where I am right now with the cannabis use is, it's so infrequent that every time I do get high, it is over the top. I mean, I'm just like, I'm cold. Can anyone hear me be cold right now? Where can I hide? Who am I? I'm afraid. And I want to overcome that shit. I want to get to the point where I can smoke and be like, light. That levity, where is that levity? Why can't I train my brain? We're so good at training our brains for other things. Why can't we? Is it because we're afraid of not having control?
That's a very good question, Thomas. That's a very good question. I don't have the answer, but I guess it would be like if I said to you, or if I took you now and put you in a pair of handcuffs and cuffed your feet, and I said, train yourself to get out of those. You know, like maybe there's some genetic anomaly on this planet, or a few genetic anomalies that could eventually dislocate their arms and shoulders and have thin enough wrists and get out of the handcuffs and the leg restraints. But for most people, I think that would probably be a very tough ask. And I know I just don't really have the mental energy to devote to training myself to overcoming something that I don't really need in the first place.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I just hate the idea of anything having leverage over me like that. I used to use this as a tool to be creative and spontaneous and just bent. I like to refer to it as just a little bit bent or spread out.
Yeah.
I get spread out just
a little
enough.
tweak of the angle.
Yeah, that I find humor in different things, and certain things sound cool, and polyrhythms laid over the top of a 5/4 is just incredible when you're just a little bit spread out. A polyrhythm would be the little beats that you don't hear that can fit in between beats. That's a very simple way to explain it. So if you're playing 4/4 like this, a polyrhythm, so you snap like this, 2, 3, 4.
No, I get it.
It's all the little things in between. That was a terrible version. Please don't write about how bad that was.
And you can get that track on iTunes now.
Yeah, exactly.
For $1.99.
$1.99. I don't know. It's sort of like food. It's like anything else. I think there's got to be a way for me to start conditioning my mind so that, okay, I'm about to take in some cannabis now, and this is going to be super positive. And this is going to be fun, and I'm going to be filled with love and light, and I'm not going to talk myself down and sit in the dark. Like, that fear, man, is just so over the top when I get high now. I was telling you earlier, just like I don't even want other people to see me when I'm stoned, because I'm like, what will they see?
And that's weird, because usually you want everyone to see you.
Exactly. Usually I'm like, take the shirt off.
Wow, dude, yeah. The thing is, I know it's just a tool, as I said, and I know there's many people who have fantastic effects from it, right? Like absolutely fantastic effects. So I'm not running the thing down. It comes back to that.
What the fuck happened though? That's what I mean. Like, it used to be fantastic for you. It used to be fantastic for me. So what changed in you to make this incredible tool whose chemical compound hasn't changed drastically, right? It's a little bit stronger. And you and I might be a little bit weaker, but what the fuck?
Man, do you know, like, I think the organism is so finely tuned and so well adaptable that, do you know how sometimes you'll meet someone and they'll say something happened to them, and since that day, their body's never been the same.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it is, it was an accident, or they had a specific sickness, and since then, it's never been the same. And I think it's the same kind of thing. I think.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like the organism just says, I don't want that anymore, and like starts putting up its own psychological, physiological barriers.
One of my clients said the same thing today. She was like, well, maybe that's cannabis telling you that you need to stop using it. And I was like, cannabis is not the boss of me.
I'm stronger than cannabis.
Exactly. Cannabis, you don't tell me what to do.
So now I guess it's time for the bi-monthly digital communion turnaround. And the question is, when was the one time you went too far?
Today?
Just this hour.
It's tough, like you. It's like I've so many times. Okay, well, the one that sticks out the most was when I ooh, that fly was biting me. Biting flies. Betrayal. I think betrayal is the nastiest thing human beings do to each other. For whatever reason, it's the thing that I continue to make art about, because it is just, it resonates with me more than, I bet you too, huh? I really fucked over my woman. And I was handling it really well for a long time, you know. I was somehow dealing with how psychologically horrible the things that I was doing to her were, because I was in that fire mode that we talked about in the love episode. I had the fire going, and it takes precedence. And I was worshiping that fire to the exclusion of everything else. And as a result, I was ruining the relationship that was so important to me, and that the breadth of the things that we had done was so powerful and so superior to what I was experiencing with the fire. But the fire is so intoxicating that I felt helpless to do anything to change it. Like, I didn't want to hurt this woman. I didn't want to do that. But I also was willing to, because it was so good, the fire. So in that case, this got real dark real fast, but when I took it too far, I hurt this person in such a way that, you know, had we not patched things up, we're together now. But if we hadn't, that could have been just a massive gaping wound in both of our lives. Fortunately, and it took a long time to get around it, because when you fuck with somebody's trust like that, when you convince them, this is the exceptionally filthy thing that I did. I convinced her that she was crazy.
Fuck.
And, you know, she was like, I'm pretty sure something's going on, and I'm like, you're
convinced
just...
her that her intuition wasn't right.
Exactly. And I think that's probably about the darkest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's not even the cheating or whatever, which I can't believe I'm talking about, but, you know.
I'm sure those crows are...
Why do you think they're screaming? They're trying to drown it out.
I don't know. But I really appreciate you being that open and honest about that. I think there are very few men, relatively few men, who work out and with high sex drives and who are those sort of active male principles in the world, who have not been in that situation in one time or another. I can count on my hand the number of men in my life that haven't succumbed to that, and they're people I respect very much. So when you say that, I completely understand, because I've done similar things in my life, and I'm incredibly ashamed of them, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about them. But I also know that I don't do them anymore, and that I did learn from those experiences, you know. And I don't think that, man, we're all human. We're all fucking human, bro. Like, that's the thing I just keep telling myself is, you know, I'm a human being. And I do appreciate you showing that, Thomas, because I know the agony that puts people through. And at the end of the day, like, you hurt yourself more than anyone else, right?
Yeah.
It's the most fucked up thing, dude. I remember one situation where I thought it was so fucking smart and that I had it so good, and it ended up hurting me more than the other people who I really fucking hurt, you know. And there's a few people out in the world that I actually need to go one day and apologize to. One guy in particular, because betrayed his trust.
You were cheating on him or what?
No, it was just it was a very, very, very shitty time in my life.
Right.
And I'd never felt as low or as lonely as I did in that point. And this guy and I were just becoming friends, and his girl and I got together, and I mean, the way I rationalized in my mind is that it was clear that she wanted out anyway, but that is absolutely no excuse. And
right.
I felt like shit for a long time about that, and I still like, sometimes just when I'm starting to get like, hey man, you're doing good things in the world and you're putting good energy out there and stuff, like, you know, the little fucking demon on my shoulder's like, oh yeah, remember that time you did that thing? And I hear you, man, I hear you.
What's interesting about the way that went down is it was happening. It was, I wanted it to happen. I just didn't want people to get hurt, which is like the have your cake and eat it too. Like, it was going to happen. Where we were at that time in our relationship, it was really starting to fall apart because of, you know, very specific things. And when you find ways to take care of those very specific things, all of a sudden you feel like you're doing a pretty smart thing. You're like, oh man, I'm really taking care of this in the
Yeah.
smartest way I know how.
And this is never going to catch up to me. No one's ever going to find
Right.
out.
Right.
Right? Like,
Well, because I'll be strong enough to cut it off where I know, that no one can get hurt. And, there are very few people. I mean, they're out there, but I think it must sit deep inside of you. And would I do, it would be really cold of me to say that if I could do it all again, I wouldn't do it that way. But I think I probably wouldn't change anything because of where we are now. I mean, I learned so much about myself and about all parties involved by going through that terrible ordeal. And now I know that the worst thing I could possibly do is betray someone's trust again. And I think it made me cleaner and stronger as a result. Mm-hmm. But it's a terrible, burden to carry. I think about it every single day.
mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it's a kind of a sins of the father type thing. Like, it made me realize that there's a pattern that I learned from my father that I was just perpetuating. And I don't even want to say unconsciously, because a large part of it was consciously.
Sure.
And then we spoke about this the other day. I just had to, in my mind, I played out the logical conclusion of this kind of lifestyle and making these choices. And it's not happiness, dude. It's not happiness.
No way.
And something I've had on my mind to speak to you about for the past few days. I'm becoming increasingly disillusioned with the new age, hippie, energy movement, even though these are things I speak about a lot, like energy and vibration. It's something I really do believe in, but that whole movement, I'm actually guilty in the past of preaching how it's all about the present moment, and I've realized it's not all about the present moment. The present moment is a part of it, and that a fully integrated human being has the ability to think about the past and project into the future and to be in the present moment, because they require those three things to live properly. You need to live in the present moment while learning from the past and planning for the future. That's one of the recipes for, in my opinion, for being fully actualized and living a good and full life. Because if any one of those two, just living with any one of those two, and you're missing out, right? If you don't learn from the past, you're going to repeat your mistakes in your future. If you don't plan for the future, it's going to be pretty shitty usually. And if you're just in the moment and neglect both of those things, that's terrible, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of the opinion that you should try to be present, sure, but part of your consciousness and awareness, and certain times you should think about what you did and what happened in the past, and you should be thinking about your future. Because I'm sure there's a lot of homeless people who are just fucking totally in the present, man. Totally, here and now, but hungry and,
Presently hungry, yeah.
Yeah, and sleeping on cardboard boxes, and I don't know, maybe that's their thing, but they don't seem too happy most of the time.
I think there's, the benefits of Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now, that sort of genre it's less about be only in the present and more about stop living so much in the past and in the future. Because you're right, it's probably, the answer is almost always somewhere in the middle. It's not over here and it's not over here.
And that's the thing we keep coming back to though, right? You notice that?
Moderation?
Well, I don't even think it's moderation. I think it's more it's more balance. It's you can swing too far in one direction, because sometimes you have to go fucking crazy to finish your project or your deadline or whatever. But you need to keep in mind that you've got to come back, right? You've got to come back to the center. And I think he agrees with me.
I think we'll probably wrap it up here, yeah?
Yeah. It got heavy real quick. That escalated quick.
Dude, that was awesome. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear.
If you are so inclined, please leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you for listening. Please check us out on YouTube, digitalcommunion.com. Our Instagram feed is always showing awesome pics. And what else is on there? This is like
I think
photographs.
that's it, man.
Really
Facebook,
clever
Instagram, YouTube.
hashtags. And thank you so much for listening and putting up with us being so honest. I feel a little bit dirty after that episode.
Yeah, dude, that wasn't easy. But better out than in, I guess.